r/relationship stories. My mom got drunk on I and admitted to me my little sister might be my uncle's. I'm 16F. I have a little sister who's 5. My mom is 34, my dad is 43 and my uncle is 40 or 41 I think. I kind of remember my parents having some fights when I was a kid but nothing that bad. They would fight but always make up after. It never got serious bad as far as I could tell, but I guess nobody sees everything that goes on in their families really, even if it's happening in the same house. My mom got drunk on New Year's Eve and admitted to me that she had a year-long affair with my uncle, my dad's brother. When she found out she was pregnant she freaked out and told my uncle it was my dad's, but in reality she wasn't sure and she didn't want to do a paternity test because she thought if it ended up my sister wasn't my dad's, the drama and stress it would cause wouldn't be good for her or my sister. I feel so disgusted by it all and I can't even look her and my uncle in the face. Luckily I've been sick for the last few days so I can just stay in my room and nobody is bothering me. I don't want to see my mom or my uncle again. I really don't even want to see my dad because whenever I think about him not knowing that there's a chance his kid might not be his, I feel sick. I don't want to explode my entire family by telling him. But I feel like keeping this from him is bad too. I don't think my mom even remembers telling me. So I guess if he does find out there's no way he'll know I kept it from him. Now for the next story. I am 28. I'm really unsure what to do about my trans GFF26. So I'm in a really difficult situation. I met a really cool girl when I was living far from home in 2017. We were both in Tokyo, but both from the US South generally. We were about a 5 hours drive from each other. We met by accident as strangers and shared some fun times together platonically. I was there for the long haul, work, school, etc. for another year or more after I met her. She was just on a vacation and was headed back home about a week after we met. We exchanged messenger info and continued talking. Stayed platonic. I updated her on happenings in Japan, really enjoyed talking to her. It was nice to have another American who was interested in what I was doing. Honestly, most people at home would talk to me once a week or WE and I don't blame them. The time difference was killer and I had so much going on that I was probably not the best friend to keep up with anyway. When I was about 3 months from coming home we video called because she wanted to see my porch view at a new apartment I had temporarily. You could see Fuji from my balcony, super cool. On that call I asked her if I could take her out when I got back. She said yes, but mentioned the distance etc. Which I said was no big deal and stood by that. Well, the distance was no big deal. I visited her. We had a really awesome date, though we were an hour and a half from her house and 4 hours from mine, so we did not go home together or anything. I kissed her but that's as far as we went. I then had to go on a short work trip to Seattle, kept talking to her, things got a little intense, and I asked if she would let me fly her to stay with me where I was working. She said she couldn't. I respected it, and we finally ended up in a position where we didn't live an undrivable amount of time away from each other in late 2018. I was settled back into the South and so was she. Asked her out on a second date, told her if it wouldn't be too crazy I would like to just pick her up and go to the mountains for a weekend or as long as she could stay. She said yes. It was only at this point, after nearly 2 years of talking, that she revealed to me she was trans. She had identified as female since her early teens and passed well enough that I never even had suspicions. I 1000% see her as a girl who happens to have different genitals, despite not really giving trans girls much thought before that weekend. We had a great weekend. I did not miss a beat regarding the revelation and we made sex work despite me never being with someone having those genitals, but it started a cycle of worry for me that maybe hasn't stopped. Well, 2019 was pretty good. We had several more long-term visits where I rented places for us to stay. She stayed at my place once, and we had a lot of day dates where I drove to that city that is 5 hours from her and 4 from me. Come 2020 lockdown I asked if she wanted to come stay with me for a while. We are now pretty serious and she has been living with me since June 2020. I really like her. She mentioned marriage for the first time over Christmas, and it hit me like a bag of bricks. I am having massive second thoughts regarding the idea of not having kids. I am also not really super into her genital situation, and I know that is so awful to say, but I am terrified that one day I will wake up and not be as satisfied as I am now. I am really into her and have made it work mentally, but it feels like it takes effort some days and I really do not know what that will look like in 10 or 20 years. Having 2 years to become attached to her, I had no problems in the moment accepting her situation down there, and I have continued to be okay with it. But I feel like I am making reverse progress rather than forward progress on being cool with it. I never considered myself gay and have zero attraction to guys. She is a very attractive person and that is what has made this work for me so far, but I am having a kind of existential moment of fear that I might wake up one day and not know what I am doing. Has anyone else ever had to go through being surprised by someone being trans? Again, when we began our relationship I was making it work because I loved every other part of her, but she is getting really serious now mentioning marriage and I have not yet really come to terms with the fact that the woman I fell in love with does not have the genitals I expected of my forever partner, and with that comes potential long-term sexual and reproductive repercussions that I never considered. I have always wanted kids. I know I can adopt. But I think I have been living in a sort of fantasy where I acted like she would not always be this way. I feel like a piece of shit garbage human. I love her, but it is getting harder, not easier for me to reconcile her being trans. I want to marry her and be the good guy who lives an awesome life with the person he fell in love with, but this feels like a hammer dropping and reminding me that my fantasy she will not always be different than what I expected is just a fantasy, and I am on the precipice of committing my life to someone who has features I never even considered being with sexually. I feel like the time I have spent with her was a dream where I kept, deep in the back of my mind, thinking I would wake up one day and things would be normal, but I am facing reality now and I did not know how much I was sheltering myself until this last week of inner turmoil. I would really appreciate any advice. Now for the next story. The one that got away asked if she should wait for me. I 30M said no. Strap in, folks, because this one's a saga. We met at a time when my current relationship was falling apart and she was single. She explicitly stated to a friend while we were hanging out that she was tired of being with people who are with other people, and I wasn't about to be one of those guys that runs off with another girl just because my relationship was struggling. I was trying to make my existing relationship with, let's call her Sarah, work. I was working gigs where I could, but mostly I was living off credit cards and finances were causing a lot of stress. But the more time I spent with the new girl, let's call her Clara, the more hopelessly I fell for her, and I know that she started to do the same thing for me. We would hang out with other friends for the most part, but one night, Clara invited me over to her place before meeting up with everybody else to play some video games. We did end up playing, but she also sang me a cover she was working on with her guitar that literally left me speechless. I actually tried to sing along and no sound came out. I've been married and divorced and in multi-year relationships, but to this day I've never been more in love with someone than I was in that moment. We didn't hook up that night, but at this point we both knew there were feelings between us. Afterwards, Clara and I began to exchange covers through YouTube that were very clearly for each other based on the lyrics. I still go back and listen to them sometimes to this day. I thought about her constantly even as I tried to salvage a relationship with Sarah that I was spending less and less time with in every respect. When I wasn't with Clara, I was thinking about her and what it would be like to leave everything behind and run away with her despite having literally no resources to do so. Towards the end of the year, as my relationship with Sarah continued to fall apart and I started spending more time out with Clara and friends, Clara invited me to the bar alone. I messaged a friend to come meet us because at this point I did not trust myself alone with her for any extended length of time. Before my friend showed up, she asked me for advice, saying I was specifically the person she wanted to talk to. She said she had been dating someone for a couple weeks and asked me if I thought keep going or wait. The way she asked it was clear, without directly asking. She was asking me, should I wait for you? Or is it time to move on from this? I said it at the top, but I told her she should go for it. I had been with Sarah for almost 5 years at this point and we had been through a lot together. As badly as I had been treating her lately, I still loved her and I wasn't about to leave her in such a shitty way. Even beyond my issues with Sarah, I knew I wasn't a good partner for Clara at that time and she deserved someone whose life was a little more put together and could really fully be with her. Clara ended up hooking up with my friend who joined us later that night and then continued to date the guy she had been dating. They're still happily together 3 years later. We messaged a few times over the years, but eventually fell out of touch. Sarah and I broke up about 6 months later, ironically by going outside of our relationship and choosing the other guy, who she's still also dating. I've been married and divorced since then, but if I'm honest with myself, I've never been as in love as I was when I was with Clara. I don't even think I necessarily want to be with Claire anymore. Her and her current partner seem very happy together and I'm genuinely happy for them. But I wish we had stayed friends for longer afterwards. I suspect a part of me will always be in love with her, so it's probably for the best we went our separate ways, but I do find myself asking what if sometimes. What if I had said yes? Would I have married her instead of my now ex-wife? How much grief and sadness would that have saved? We can't know the outcome of things that never happened. But I wonder about how different things could have been. Now for the next story. I'm catfishing my fiancé and I think he's falling for her. Well, this is probably going to be NSFW and I already realize it makes me a terrible person, so I'd appreciate saving those comments. The thing is, my fiancé is absolutely the love of my life. We are, in fact, perfect for one another. Except that I myself am far from perfect. One of my kinks involves what is called kook queening, the female version of cucking. It is something I have been into for many years now and he fully supports me. Recently, we wanted to actually go forward and do this. We have been trying to find a female to be interested in both of us. We have tried so many resources and dating apps and even went as far as almost soliciting an escort while in Vegas. We didn't go for it though. We have been on OkCupid and Tinder and have had many matches, but it's a very slow process and a lot of girls don't know what they're looking for when they're seeking out a couple. Now this next part is where I took things too far. I wish I could tell you that the situation was really premeditated and thought out, but instead, I thought with the wrong part of my body. I made an OkCupid account using some models' pictures, then matched with us, and from there, I started talking and texting my fiancé. I didn't even try to become a different person. I texted just as I would and responded just as I would, as, well, me. And so naturally, because we get along so well, he became very interested in her. I sent more pictures of this really cute model and he acted out everything I wanted in my kink fantasy. Desiring another person, getting excited over them, and thinking about them. Last night he slept with his phone by his side. He absolutely hates his phone, just in case she texted him. Because of this kind of behavior from him, I myself have been so turned on and we've been having the wildest and craziest sex we've ever had. Many times a day. So now, I'm addicted and I'm almost getting everything I wanted, but I am deceiving him and I hate that. It has only been about a week and I was ready to come clean with him, except that I realized he has fallen for her. And now, in order to confess to him, I have to break his heart and tell him that she is not real. I know he will forgive me because he is understanding, but I will be killing the spark he has and the excitement he has when you can't stop thinking about someone and feel so amazing, like you're walking on clouds because that somebody likes you too. I feel terrible and I know how fucked up and selfish this is. Well, that's all for the video today. I hope you enjoyed it and as always have an amazing day.